The crime that we committed was fraud.
David Packouz,
the man behind the movie War Dog, mastermind of million-dollar deals in the global arms game.
Founder of multiple blue ocean businesses.
I bumped into a guy named Efraim. He asked me, you should come and work with me. We can make a lot more money together than what you're doing with your bed sheets right now. And I'm like, well, how much money have you made? He logs into his Bank of America account and he shows me his account and he has $1.8 million in cash in the bank. The government buys literally everything, right? They buy fuel, they buy cars, they buy food, they buy clothes, they buy services. I got into the arms dealing business and mostly selling to the US government. In the movie, like we're in Rock Island Arsenal and in a meeting with all the government contractors at a table, and they're all laughing about how we underbid. In real life, the way we actually found out that we underbid the nearest competition by $52 million was
when you win the contract, how much do you actually profit off of a contract?
very few people bid it at less than 5%. But there are some contracts where you could bid it pretty high.
Did the stuff that happened in Albania, was that true?
It is well known for having high levels of corruption and organized crime. So if you step on the wrong toes, you'll probably end up dead. So people have this idea that you need to work like 18 hours a day, 365 days a year, otherwise you're never gonna succeed. And the truth is, most people, if you try to do that, you're gonna burn out real quick.
Can you give us your best advice?
You kind of have to figure yourself out in order to maximize your capabilities.
Kickin' Ass, Taking Names podcast. And today we are here at the Move Miami. We apologize if there's noise in the background. It's a huge party going on right now. But today we are here with a very special guest, someone that had a movie basically about his life. So guys, without further ado, the war dog himself, David Packouz. Thank you so much for being here, brother.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. That's actually one of my favorite movies of all time. And honestly, I guess for the audience, right? They don't know the story. And then this is the way that we kind of roll things is like typically we want to go into like advice as well and stuff like that. So let's see what we can pick out because it's kind of an interesting. You have War Dogs Academy, right?
Yes.
And so can we briefly hear about that first? Yeah.
Sure. So since the movie War Dogs came out, and for people who haven't seen the movie, it's happened a little bit ago, about 20 years ago in 2005, 2006. I got into the arms dealing business and mostly selling to the US government, where the business is called government contracting. Mm-hmm. The way the government needs to buy things is they need to put it out for open bid so they get the best price. So they post it on their website, and then anyone who's registered with the government can submit a bid. And if you have the lowest bid, combined with other factors that they care about, like reliability, delivery, et cetera, then you win the contract, you deliver, and you get to make that profit. So since the movie came out, a lot of people have been asking me to teach them how to do this business because it's somewhat complicated. There's a lot of legal things that you have to go through and a lot of paperwork you got to fill out. I had been banned from doing government contracting for about 15 years, but I recently got off the banned list.
Okay.
And so I didn't really want to get into teaching people because I felt my knowledge was a little bit out of date. But then I had this guy named Logan contact me about a year ago. He told me that 6 years ago, him and his partner, James, they were dead broke, working on a banana farm in Australia just to make some cash. And the farm had a movie night, and they showed War Dogs. And so they thought, man, these guys in the movie are like 21, 22 years old. That's our age. If they can do it, why can't we do it? And so they got obsessed with government contracting and started their own business. And they ended up not specializing in ammunition and weapons like I did, but they ended up specializing in laundry services of all things. And they built a multi-million-dollar business providing laundry services to the federal government all over the world. Like they just won a $8.5 million contract to supply laundry services to the Air Force Base in Germany.
That's crazy considering that your past was, you had that. Is that a real story? So in the movie, you were selling bed sheets?
Yeah. So let me just finish how the War Dogs Academy got started. So when they contacted me and they're like, hey, just wanted to say thank you for the inspiration. And I thought these guys are like as up to date as you can be on government contracting. So, and I've got so many people asking me to teach them how to do this business. And I'd already moved on to other businesses. I run a music tech company. I created a flossing device called InstaFloss. So I'm like inventing things now. That's like my main business. But I had so many people asking me to teach them how to do government contracting. I created War Dogs Academy with James and Logan, and to teach people how to do government contracting. And we only started it just like 3-4 months ago. To date, we have over 50 of our students have won federal contracts.
Wow.
One of them just won a $2 million contract, and that's after like 3 months of work.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that's, that you can expect that without a lot of work, but it is possible, and people are doing it all the time. And War Dogs Academy, we help people learn that business and launch their careers in that field.
Yeah. So, I mean, with that being said, I know that you got started. I kind of want to pivot, just go to the story first, right?
Sure.
So let's get the reality of it versus the movie. Because
Sure.
I think most people who are going to watch this might, if they haven't seen the movie, they're probably going to watch it now. And so how did that start? And like, what was your mindset getting into government contracting and deciding to get into arms? I know that was a big time, right? That's Iraq War and all of that.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about that story?
Sure. So the way I got into, well, first of all, I was not a gun guy at all. I was like more of a hippie at the time. I was playing guitar, smoking weed, musician. I had dreams of being a rock star. I was actually in college studying chemistry and had a few side jobs. I was working as a massage therapist, as they show in the movie. I also had a few side jobs, like I was buying SD cards from China in bulk and selling them on eBay. I was buying bed sheets from Pakistan and selling them to nursing homes and hospitals in the United States. Not like they show in the movie where I was like going to nursing homes and like begging the guy to buy my bed sheets.
Yeah.
I was brokering, so like I wouldn't even buy the stuff until I already had a buyer.
Oh, okay.
And I never even took delivery on it.
Yeah.
It was kind of like drop shipping, but with like containers of towels and bed sheets. So I was doing pretty well, at the time. But then I bumped into a friend of mine, a guy named Efraim Diveroli, who in the movie he's played
Jonah.
Yeah, he's played by Jonah Hill. And he asked me, what I was doing these days, and I told him about, the bed sheets and the SD cards and everything. And he's like, oh, like that kind of, what you're doing is a lot of that skill set can be applied to my business too. Finding suppliers overseas, figuring out logistics, the licensing, financing, all that stuff. But I bet I'm making way more money than you. So you should come and work with me. We can make a lot more money together than what you're doing with your bed sheets right now. And I said, well, are you sure about that? Because I had like at the time I was 23, I think, and I'd saved up about like $100K. Yeah, so I thought I was pretty hot shit. It was a lot more than all my friends.
Yeah, back then.
Too. Sure, and all legally, of course. And I'm like, well, how much money have you made? And he says, well, he's like, I'm going to tell you, but not to show off. I'm just going to inspire you. And he opens up his computer and he logs into his Bank of America account. And he shows me his account and he has $1.8 million in cash in the bank.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy crap, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'm in. Teach me what you know. And that's how I got into it.
So can you tell me a little bit about the movie and how you're depicted in the movie and then in real life?
Well, I think I'm way cooler in real life, way better hair, of course.
Yeah.
When Hollywood makes a movie, they need to have a dramatic arc. So they want to show you, like doing really bad and then doing really good and then really bad, so there's that emotional range. In real life, I wasn't doing as badly as they show that I was doing in the movie. As I said, my businesses were doing fine. I wasn't like making millions, but I was pretty comfortable for working part-time while going to college for chemistry.
Right.
And but they wanted to show me more down on my luck. So they, that's kind of like how they portrayed me. But I understand why they did it. They needed to make it a better dramatic arc.
And then did Hollywood approach you? And you probably would do sit downs with Jonah Hill and Miles Teller, or like how did they, did they have you tell them directly your story? And
so I sat down with Stephen Chin, who was the original screenwriter of the film. And he actually flew to Miami And we spent like a good week together where he interviewed me and recorded all our conversations. And I told him all the stories I could remember. And he based the first iteration of the script on that. And then Todd Phillips and I think it was and Smilovic, Jason Smilovic, who the other script writer, they rewrote the script like 10 times over the course of like the next year and kind of molded it more into like a Hollywood format. Yeah. So that's kind of how that process happened.
So I saw you were in Albania. First off, what's your impression of Albania?
I actually wasn't in Albania.
You weren't at all?
No, I was not in Albania.
Okay.
So what in real life, the guy who went to Albania, his name was Alex. He was my best friend.
Yeah.
Efraim didn't want me to go to Albania because I was managing pretty much the entire contract. And we had like, I think it was like 8 different sources from different countries all over the world. And I was also dealing with the federal government and from Rock Island Arsenal, the contracting officers. So there was a lot of management to this contract. The Albanian portion was actually just about 10% of the value of the contract.
Got it.
It was the biggest logistical headache, but as far as money was concerned, it was kind of a minor part of the contract. Ironically, that's what brought us down, but it actually was the smallest part financially of the contract. So Efraim wanted me to stay in Miami and to manage the entire operation. So we decided to send Alex to Albania to do the inspections and the repackaging operation.
And so considering that, did the stuff that happened in Albania, was that true or?
Partially.
Like, because I heard it is a pretty rough place. You know?
It can be if you get on the wrong side of certain people.
Yeah.
It is well known for having high levels of corruption and organized crime. So if you step on the wrong toes, you'll probably end up dead. But at the time, I mean, we were making a lot of people a lot of money. So
treated pretty well.
Yeah. So they treated us all right.
That's good. And so how's your relationship with Efraim, and is what happened? Did that really happen? Did you guys have a falling out? Or are you guys?
Actually the falling out part is pretty accurate. He actually did steal my handwritten contract that we had between us, and he decided to not pay me a penny. So no, we are not friends.
Yeah, I was going to say.
No.
So currently, you haven't talked to him since. Yeah.
The last time I saw him was like in a deposition when I was suing him for the money he owed me.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I would assume though, since he's in the movie, you guys both probably signed a deal.
No, they don't have to do that. So the way the law works in the United States is if they want to make a movie about you, right? If your name appears in the public media, right? Like if you're written about in a newspaper, you're talked about on TV, you're now officially considered a public figure. And according to freedom of speech, you can make any work of art on any public figure. And they don't have to pay you a penny. So they could use your real name, say anything they want about you, and they don't have to pay you.
Did you get paid from the movie?
I did, because they wanted my cooperation. So they bought my life rights, as they call it.
Yeah. That's interesting. Crazy. So like, considering that, I can imagine he's probably not too happy.
He hated it. Yeah, he hated the movie.
And his name is out there. Wow.
And of course, Jonah was as big as he's been in his entire career when he's playing him. So he wasn't happy about that either. Yeah. He actually wasn't fat, Efraim, in real life. At the time that the movie story takes place, he wasn't. He got fat later. But at the time that story takes place, he was not fat. He was actually doing a lot of coke. He was pretty skinny.
Wow.
So yeah, I've heard, I actually talked to someone who went to see the movie with him in the theater, and he was furious.
Seriously?
he did not like the movie.
You thought that was pretty funny?
Yeah, I was pretty entertained. Yeah.
So considering that, like I heard a story, I saw you on another pod. You were talking about when you guys, can you tell me the story of when you submitted the bid and just like, how it came to be in fruition? Because obviously the book and the movie is based off of you guys winning a huge government contract, right? And then, like in the trailer, they're like, Efraim's pissed. Like, I can't believe I underbid by 60 million. Like, is that true? And
52 million. But yeah, that's true.
Can you give us a little bit of like the insight behind that?
Sure. About that.
That story.
The underbidding. So the way we found out about it in real life was not the way they showed in the movie. In the movie, like we're in Rock Island Arsenal and like in a meeting with all the government contractors at a table, and they're all laughing about how we underbid. it's actually illegal for them to tell us that,
Yeah.
right? So that would never happen. They would never, kind of all chuckle together, that we underbid and tell us what the next price was.
Right. Yeah.
According to the law, the government is only required to publish the winning bid, right? But they do not publish any other bids generally because they don't want the winner to know how close they were, because then the next time that they bid, they may up their prices to make more profits, and the government doesn't want that. They want to get the best price.
Yeah.
So the way we actually found out that we underbid the nearest competition by $52 million was after we won the bid, we were struggling a bit to get some of the licensing, because when you move military goods by air freight, you need to get every country that you fly over to give you a license to fly your military goods over that country's airspace. It's called a flyover permit. And we were flying from like Albania and a few other countries to Afghanistan. And I think there were like 11 some countries, something in between. We had to get permission from each one. And some of them were not giving us permission, like Uzbekistan didn't want to give us permission.
Yeah.
In the countries that were kind of more allied with Russia, they were kind of like trying to, interfere with our operations. And so I was talking to one of the contracting officers, telling him, they were like pressuring us, you got to deliver now. Our Afghan allies need the ammo yesterday. They're running out of ammo. And it's like, it's a fighting season in Afghanistan now. They have a fighting season. Because like in the winter, the snow blocks all the mountain passages.
Oh, wow.
And so they could only fight in the spring and the summertime. So fighting season was coming, and our Afghan allies were running out of ammo. So they were like really pressuring us to deliver. And I told them, hey, we're having some trouble with getting these flyover permits. And he's like, oh, don't worry about that. We'll help you out. We'll get the embassies, to the defense attaché in the embassies of those countries to talk to their counterparts and get the flyover permits issued. We really want to help you guys out because you guys were just like so competitive. We really hope you guys succeed. And I'm like, really? We were really competitive? He's like, oh yeah, you beat the next guys by so much. I'm like, really? How much? And he goes to me, he's like, well, the truth is I'm not really supposed to tell you this. He's like, but between me and you, I'm like, you came in 52 million under the next guy.
Jeez.
And I'm like, holy shit. And so I told Efraim, like after I got off
Was he
the
actually
phone,
mad?
he was furious. He's like, fuck, we could have made another 50 mil. Fuck.
At the end of the day, though, that was so that money, though, he retained it. You didn't get it.
He kept most of the money.
So now you guys got in trouble, right?
Yeah. Eventually,
How did that play out? What did you get? What did Efraim get? Did you do any time in prison?
So, well, we both pled guilty,
right?
And when you plead guilty, the way it works is you cooperate with the government, right? I see a lot of YouTube comments. Oh, he's turned state evidence. He's a snitch. Well, Efraim was a snitch too. I mean, like that's how the entire system works, right? If you plead guilty and you want to get a reduction on your sentence, you have to cooperate with the government. That's the deal they make, right? It's called a plea agreement, right? You have to sign an agreement with them where you admit all the things you did. You agree to testify in court if necessary on what you did. They're not asking you to make up stories. They're just to tell the truth. And in return, the government will ask the judge to give you a light sentence, right? That's the deal. Now, part of that deal is that before, there's usually a time period between when you sign the plea agreement and when you get sentenced by the judge. In the plea agreement, it says if you commit any further crimes, you invalidate this plea agreement, right? Meaning that at least the part that the government has to go and go to bat for you with the judge. Because how are they going to ask the judge, go easy on this guy if you're out there committing more crimes, right? Going to be hard to convince the judge that you're a reformed citizen, going to be a good boy from now on, right? So I was scared shitless, of course. I was like, because we were looking at years and years in prison, and so I signed my plea agreement. I went back to college to study mechanical engineering. I even started doing massage therapy again because I had to support myself and my kid. And but Efraim had a higher tolerance for risk, right? So after he signed his plea agreement, they told him, hey, you can't be in the arms business anymore. So what does he do? He gets his latest lackey to start a company under his own name and starts doing business under that guy's name.
Oh.
But the thing was, he was a real control freak. So he couldn't let the other guy do the negotiation. He was a very good negotiator.
Yeah.
So like when he hears the other guy negotiating, he's like, give me the phone. Let me talk to the guy. So he tried to do a deal with a gun dealer up in Central Florida. And the guy realized who he was, the gun dealer, and probably thought reasonably that Efraim's trying to set him up so he gets a reduction on his sentence, because he knew that he had already pled guilty to what he did in the newspapers. And so the gun dealer he's trying to do business with calls up the ATF and says, hey, I've got this convicted gun dealer, asking to do business with me. What should I do? ATF says, why don't you introduce one of our undercover agents to him as your business partner?
Yeah.
So the undercover agent talks to Efraim, says, hey, we can do this deal, but you have to come up to Central Florida. I'm the kind of guy who, has to look you in the eye and shake your hand, like a man, right? And Ephraim's like, oh, yeah, that's how men do business, I'll be up there.
That's how he talks?
Yeah, that's how he talks, yeah. He doesn't laugh like Jonah Hill laughs.
No.
No. He laughs more. Jonah does that famous, and no, in real life, he's like, like that. It's more like that. So he's like, yeah, I'll be up there next weekend. He gets in his car. Because the ATF agent knew that he was not allowed to leave the Southern District of Florida according to the terms of his bond. So Efraim gets in his car, goes up to Central Florida to meet the undercover agent. Now, the agent knew that Efraim had already pled guilty, so he's a convicted felon. It's illegal for a convicted felon to be in possession of a firearm, right? It's also illegal for you to hand a convicted felon a firearm. So what does the agent do? He pops the hood of the trunk of his car, and he says, hey, check out the gun I've got in there. Points, he's like, it's the latest HK handgun, the latest thing on the market, so super cool. And Efraim, knowing Ephraim's a gun nut, right? Ephraim's like, oh, let me see about that. I heard about that. He picks it up. Like, let's go to the range and fire off some rounds, because what can I say? Once a gun runner, always a gun runner, am I right? And the agent slaps the cuffs on him. He's like, you're a felon in possession of a firearm. You're under arrest. You can get up to 10 years for that.
How much did he get?
He ended up, he could have gotten 5 years for the fraud. They charged us with fraud, and which had a max of 5 years for what we did for the repackaging operation that we did of the ammo.
Yeah.
And so he could have gotten 5 years for the fraud charge and 10 years for the gun charge, 15 total. But he hired the best lawyers in Miami, spent like a couple million on him, and he negotiated down to 4. He ended up getting out in like 3.5 for good behavior drug. What
did you get any time?
So I had a max of 5 years, but I did not invalidate my plea agreement. So I ended up just getting 7 months of house arrest.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah,
I remember that. They
prison.
actually said that, I think, in the movie
at the
too.
end, yeah.
The end, yeah. And that's just like a crazy story. The fact that like, so I mean, you're how old are you when you're doing this, by the way?
I started when I was like 22, and it ended when I was 25.
It's just like so crazy that would. So this is like a past, like this feels like a past life to you almost.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm 42 now. So,
yeah, it's like
this is
almost 20 years ago.
Yeah,
and so you still obviously you had your daughter.
Yeah.
Daughter. And so you said she is turning 18 now?
She's going to be 18 in a few months, yeah.
Has she's seen the movie, yeah?
Yeah, just recently, actually, for the first time.
Really?
Surprisingly, yeah.
How did she like it?
She told me it wasn't her kind of movie. She likes anime. So, she's more into like Japanese anime.
That's so funny.
So yeah, not her style.
Like that'd be so interesting, like being almost 18, seeing a movie about like your dad, right?
Yeah,
like,
I was actually surprised because like she only saw it just a few months ago for the first time.
Really?
And like she'd never she knew that there was this movie about me, and she'd never expressed any interest in watching it. And I'm like, I always thought that was weird, And I'm like, I asked her, I'm like, you're not interested in seeing a movie that's about your dad?
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, she's like, it doesn't look like my kind of movie, and she's like, I saw a preview and I see this guy with like hair saying, I'm David Packouz. I'm like, you're not David Packouz. My dad's bald. And so it like just threw her off.
Yeah.
And, so the one thing she took away from the movie was that they whitewashed her because so they show her in the movie as a baby, right? And my daughter in this is actually funny. So I met Ana de Armas, right, on set of one of the scenes. It was actually at the scene where they get arrested, right? Yeah. And you see Jonah and Miles getting walked to the cop car, by the FBI agents, and like Anna is with the stroller, and she's like, no,
Yeah.
And so I was there on set for when they filmed that scene, and so I met Ana de Armas, and she asked me, she's like, David, she's like, by the way, she spoke English perfectly. Yeah. I don't know, people say she didn't speak English, but she spoke English perfectly. She asked me, she's like, David, your ex-wife, she's like, is she as like dark as me? Because like they gave me this really dark spray tan. And I'm like, this is kind of like almost too dark.
Yeah.
And I told her, I'm like, my ex-wife is half African. So, so a little darker than even that dark spray tan. So yeah, my ex is, she's half African, half Spanish.
Oh, okay.
So she's like a mulatto. She kind of looks a lot more like Halle Berry.
Oh, okay.
Or Haley Berry. I don't know pronounce it.
Yeah.
Like that kind of color.
Okay.
So my daughter is also a bit dark.
Yeah.
And but in the movie they have like a white baby, and she's like, they whitewash me.
That's funny.
And she thought it was funny. She's like, oh, so typical Hollywood, always whitewashing people.
How was life after the movie? Like, did you you said that a lot of people started contacting you about military contracts. Is that like the biggest thing that happened since then? Like, or have you been, has anybody been like, hey, do you want to be in Hollywood, or like?
I mean, I did have my
your scene,
my
cameo.
scene. I had my cameo, so I'm officially SAG-AFTRA. I am an official actor, right? As far as Hollywood's concerned, I still get a check every quarter from Hollywood for my royalties, like $100 every like 3 months for my 3 seconds on screen. So I can't imagine what Miles and Jonah are getting.
Yeah,
but. No, nobody's offered me any starring roles in any Hollywood films because of that. I wouldn't turn it down. So Hollywood, I'm here.
We're gonna get you some good clips.
Yeah. No, I would say that the biggest effect that the movie had on my life was that a lot of people asked me about, learning contracting, so that went into starting War Dogs Academy, which is doing really, really well.
Right.
A lot of our students are making a lot of money, which is amazing to see, to be able to give back in that way. And of course, I get invited on cool podcasts. So I get to promote, my businesses, which is really cool.
Yeah. So can you tell the audience a little bit of your other businesses? And like, you said, it kind of connects to your early passion in music, right? So what are you currently working on?
Sure. So while I was actually under house arrest, I had 7 months of house arrest, and I was very bored, right? I had the ankle tracking thing, but it wasn't like a COVID style lockdown. People could visit me. So I had I've been playing guitar, and I'm a singer-songwriter since I was like 15. And so I had a lot of my musician friends visit me, and we'd jam. But no drummer's going to bring his drum set over my house because it's a pain in the butt to move. So I bought a drum machine, which is like a tabletop electronic device. It has a bunch of buttons. Each one makes a different drum sound. You can make the beats on it and place it back in a loop, and then you can play your guitar to it. But every time you want the drums to change, like when you're going from like verse to chorus in a song, you have to stop playing your guitar, press a button on the machine to change the beat, and then you go back to playing the guitar, and it interrupted the flow of the music. So I thought, I need a drum machine that's in a pedal format on the floor. Yeah. And nobody made it. Like, it just didn't exist. So I thought, well, nobody's making this, but all my musician friends thought it was a great idea. I'm like, everybody wants this.
And you have an engineering degree.
So I didn't have enough of engineering knowledge to build it myself. So I had to hire engineers to actually build it, but I knew the basics. So I developed it. It's called the Beat Buddy, like your buddy that plays the beat. And that was my first invention, and it did really, really well. I've sold, many millions of dollars worth of it we actually just released our 10th year anniversary.
Have you thought of going on Shark Tank? Because I feel like they would accept your application.
So actually they won't, because they have a rule that they do not accept convicted felons.
Oh.
So I'm disqualified.
Shoot.
Yeah.
You don't count as you don't like get it expunged. It doesn't eventually.
You can't get federal crimes expunged unless you get like a pardon.
Yeah.
So unless, I get pardoned, President Biden, Trump, I'm open. Whoever wants to give me a pardon, I'll take it.
I think they would be. That would be cool, man. You work your way to through the podcast circuit, and I think he'll eventually hear about you.
Maybe, yeah. I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, but I mean that's super cool. So now, are you allowed? You're not. Are you allowed? You said you're allowed now to officially do government.
Yeah, I just got off
again.
the banned list last year. Yeah,
last year. Are you going to? Are you looking into it?
So we're looking into bidding on. I'm not looking to get into brokering myself. So what we were doing was brokering, right? We didn't actually make any of the ammunition or the guns or any of the other stuff, and we didn't just deliver military stuff. My first contract with the Army was with the federal government was for 40,000 gallons of propane, and that got delivered to the Air Force in Wyoming. And that was my first contract ever. So it wasn't even like weapons or ammunition. The government buys literally everything, right? They buy fuel, they buy cars, they buy food, they buy clothes, they buy services like laundry services and janitorial services and literally everything. So, most businesses, I think only about, if I recall correctly, about 2% of US businesses are registered to do business with the federal government. So that opens up the opportunity to brokers, right? People who just find what the government wants to buy and, finds the suppliers and then puts in a bid and just collects a profit from being the middleman, right? So that's what we were doing. And that's a great business and you can make many millions of dollars doing that. I'm currently focused on I have a few different businesses. I have Singular Sound, which is the music tech business. We also created InstaFloss, which is a device that flosses all your teeth for you in 10 seconds. Instafloss.com. You can check it out.
InstaFloss.
And now we have War Dogs Academy. And I also created, just recently launched a business called Comment Compass, which tracks and notifies you of any new comments on videos that you want to track on YouTube. So usually you only get notified if there are comments on the videos that you publish.
Yeah.
But as a brand, because I created all these different products, I have a lot of these products being reviewed by YouTubers, by influencers. And the comment section is where people really make their decisions about whether, something is good or is bad, because they want to hear what, people who've tried the product, think, or they have questions, so you can close some sales. So it's very important to stay on top of the comments section of reviews on your products or your service or your business or your brand. But of course, that means you have to do it manually. You have to go look up those videos and sort all the comments to most recent. And it's a big pain in the butt.
Yeah.
So Comment Compass, commentcompass.com, you just put in the URL and it notifies you anytime there's new comments. And we also have an AI system that sorts it for questions, positive, negative. So that's my latest business. So I've got several different businesses. I like creating businesses that are what they consider to be blue ocean businesses, businesses without really a lot of competition. Like I created the Beat Buddy. Nobody else ever made that. InstaFloss, nobody really makes that, anything like it. And it has its own challenges, but that's the businesses I like to be in now. And brokering is what they call a red ocean business, meaning it's a very competitive business. You could make a lot of money, and most of the money is in red ocean businesses, right? Because most people aren't coming up with new innovative things. But it's a different kind of business, right? So I'm not really looking to get into brokering myself as far as government contracting, but I am going to be bidding on contracts for my businesses.
Yeah, so like for InstaFloss to be in,
exactly,
government.
to be used by the government.
Interesting. So what, I guess like kind of obviously not everybody's going to be doing these businesses, but considering the fact that you are in a very unique business, what is some of the advice that you give people if they wanted to get involved in government contract businesses?
In government contracting business? Well, I would say check out War Dogs Academy. That's going to get you started way faster than if you try to do it on your own. You could figure it out on your own if you're really motivated and you don't mind making a lot of mistakes along the way.
Yeah.
And we did. And James and Logan, my partners in War Dogs Academy, did as well. But they would have made a lot more money a lot sooner. We all would have if we had someone who knew what they were doing to teach us. And that's what we offer with War Dogs Academy. We have retired government contracting officers, people who used to work for the government, deciding who wins the contracts. They work for us now and they help our students reviewing their proposals, making sure that they're doing everything correctly in the correct format so that they don't like get disqualified for something stupid, and make sure that they have the best chance of winning. We also started a new B2B service business for businesses who are already established and they want to bid to the government for the services or the products that they create. And they want to do that as quickly as possible. So we have a service to do that for them.
And what was your portion? Like, let's say, you would have actually profited without, because I'm assuming that also you guys probably lost all the money, right? From the.
You're talking about the big contract?
Yeah, the big contract and then all your other contract. Did you get to keep any portion of it? And then also, did Efraim get to keep any portion of it?
So Efraim got to keep most of it. He had to pay something like a $350,000 fine. Not much.
But he kept the money that he...
Yes, he did. Because
even though you guys did the...
Yes. And the reason for that is because the crime that we committed was fraud.
Yeah.
Right? And the way they charged us was because we had lied about the origin of the ammunition, right? We said it was from China when it was really from Albania. We had a whole operation to repackage it to make it look like it was not from China, right? And so they charged us with fraud. When the court decides what reparations you need to make, in your sentencing. So when they sentence someone who's convicted of fraud, they usually have a few different aspects to it. They have a punishment like, prison or house arrest or something like that. They also have like reparations that you have to make to the victim, right? Which is you need to pay the money back to the victim that the victim lost, right? Now, the thing is that the army didn't lose any money, right? In fact, they were going to save $52 million.
Yeah.
They were going to make a lot of money by going with us. They weren't losing. So the only damages that they can claim was the cost of them taking the contract away from us and rebidding it out. And they claimed that cost them $350,000. So Efraim had to pay that in damages.
So how much did, I guess, since you didn't get any of the money, right? Because Efraim basically took the contract. Yeah. So how much then did Efraim keep?
I estimate that he kept from that particular contract, he kept between $15 and $20 million.
Jeez. Dang, that's a lot of money though. So your share would have been literally half, or?
No, I was going to make 25%.
25%. So
of that contract.
Still would have been like over $5 million.
Yeah, it's about $5 million. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that does make it seem a little bit more digestible though, of a loss. Like I lost $5 million.
It's only $5 million.
It's only $5 million instead of $200 million.
Right.
Still though, that's so 350. So how did when you win the contract, how much do you actually profit off of a contract then?
It could be all over the place. So I would say most contracts you're not going to make less than 5% is ridiculous. That's like practically breaking even. So very few people bid it at less than 5%.
Yeah.
But there are some contracts where you could bid it pretty high. If you know the business that you're in, you can bid it pretty high. Like we actually have one of our students who won, I think it was like a $200,000 contract. And she's making a 40% margin on it.
Yeah.
So, So
sometimes it might be better to do a bunch of smaller deals than one larger deal.
So you need to do the smaller deals before you get to the larger deals, right? Because the way the government, they require, for larger deals, they require what they call past performance, which is like a proof that you've done this kind of business in the past.
Yeah.
And so you need to get a few small deals under your belt. And for the government, anything under $250K is a small deal.
Yeah.
And you don't need past performance for anything under $250,000 of a contract.
Can you give us your best advice for like people who are looking to get involved? And also just kind of life advice. Like what's the life advice from the War Dog himself?
Just general life advice is that you kind of have to figure yourself out in order to maximize your capabilities, right? So people have this idea that you need to work like 18 hours a day and, 365 days a year. Otherwise, you're never going to succeed, right? And the truth is, if you try, most people, if you try to do that, you're going to burn out real quick. And the only way you're going to really succeed is if you find like a rate of work that works for you long term, right? You can do sprints, as they call them, right? Like a really intense weeks of work or something where you're working really long hours, no breaks. But most people can't keep that up for the long term. And you shouldn't really try because you're going to burn yourself out and then you're going to get discouraged and quit. You need to find that balance. Life is about balance, right? You need to work your ass off, but you also need to know when you need to like step back and recharge. Because if you don't, you're not going to be able to continue working your ass off. And then the only way you're going to be successful is if you figure out a way to work effectively for the long term. Guys, with that, if you guys have any questions, you can find David Packouz on Instagram. And that's just like incredible. I probably have more questions, but guys, with that being said, Kickin' Ass Taking Names with David. Thank you, David, for being here. My pleasure. And we're done. That's a wrap.